Okay, Thursday reading from the Five People You Meet in Heaven. We're going to pick up on page 63, and we're going to go to page 71 today. And we're going to tackle some more of Eddie and his father's relationship, as well as learn who this third figure he's going to meet is, who's kind of this is a neat twist that Mitch Albom throws in there, who this person is. So starting out, though, we still have some more about Eddie and his dad to develop. And what happens is Eddie has come back from the war and is laying there. I mean, he's a broken guy, man. He's been shot in the leg. He really doesn't move all that well anymore. He's dealing with the fact that, he's been wounded. He doesn't feel good. He's got all the trauma from the war. And his dad has apparently had enough of it and bursts in there drunk and yelling at him to get a job and just keeps on going. But at this point, Eddie's had enough. He jumps up, and his dad's about to punch him, and he grabs his dad's arm. And they say at that point something weird happens to his father. His father, like his kids never stood up to him before, and he just stares at him. And then such a chilling sentence right here at the bottom of 63. It says he never spoke to his son again. And he still lived for a little while, and him and his son have no interaction from then on. He doesn't speak to him. I've been mad at people before and not spoken to him for a day, maybe two if I was really mad, but for years, that's just crazy. And then it says, and we're continuing that metaphor that Mitch Albom set up earlier with the idea about glass and how parents are like, an impact, like if a child's the glass and the parents leaving their mark on it. He said, sometimes you leave a fingerprint, sometimes you crack it, sometimes you shatter it. It says this was the final handprint on Eddie's glass. Silence. It haunted their remaining years. So like this was the last straw. All right. The dad kept, whenever somebody would ask, the dad would just say that his son raised his hand to him, which you can see the irony in that. The dad's been beating on his kids for their entire life. And so it's kind of funny that he gets that, not funny, it's kind of disturbing that he gets that mad about it. But then notice this like bookend where it says all parents damage their children. Remember, we started this section with that. So this was their life together: neglect, violence, silence, and now someplace beyond death. Eddie slumped against a stainless steel wall and dropped into a snowbank, stung again by the denial of a man whose love, almost inexplicably, he still coveted, a man ignoring him even in heaven, his father, the damage done. So we talked earlier about the differences in repetition and parallelism. That's repetition, the damage done. That sentence has been echoed throughout this section, all right? And Eddie's upset now. He's like, his dad ignored him in life, and now he's ignoring him in heaven. Well, the reason is that he's not there to speak to his dad, and we get that in the very next section here on 64. Don't be angry, a woman said. He can't hear you. Okay, Eddie jerks his head up, and he looks at this old woman, and he doesn't recognize her. He doesn't know anything about her. It says he looks at her and kind of starts making a judgment that she must be some rich lady, but of course she knows what he's thinking, and she says she wasn't always. She was raised like he was, actually, kind of forced to work and things like that. We'll find out later on that they're at this diner because she worked at that diner, and that's the happiest memory she has is of that. And there is a little message buried in this. It's not an overt one there's one buried in here, that money does not equal happiness. Because when this woman does become wealthy and things, she's living that type of life, is actually the most unhappy she is. She says her happiest days were back here at this diner, which is why he's meeting her here. And I know I'm going ahead, but I just kind of needed to give you that ground rule there. So Eddie asks her, "Are you my third person?" She says, "I definitely am." She doesn't say who she is right now. But Eddie's still trying to piece this together about why are these five people here for him. And he asks her a couple of questions. She says, "Can I see Earth?" He whispered, and she shook her head no. "Can I talk to God?" And she says a really cool line. And this is in your questions, by the way. She says, you can always do that. And again, there's this idea that he hasn't chosen to be talking to God. And she's like, he's always been there, and he's always there to listen. And, there's nothing stopping you from that. He also asks if he can go back. I wants to go back to my life to the last day. Is there anything I can do? And she wants to know, why would you possibly want to go back to that? Eddie kind of is having a meltdown here because, he's halfway through his journey here, and he's like, I just don't understand what's going on here. This makes no sense to me. And, she trying to reaffirms that he's there to make peace, basically. She says, or Eddie says, "Ain't you supposed to have peace when you die?" "You have peace," the old woman said, "when you make it with yourself." So she's telling me basically that's what this is about. This transition is for making peace with yourself and your past and just, letting go in a way. He looks at her and he says, "No offense, lady, but I don't even know you." "But I know you," she said. Eddie sighed. "Oh, yeah, how's that?" "Well," she said, "if you have a moment." And then she's basically saying, "Let me show you some things, all right?" So then she goes and gives him some past about the grill they were sitting at, how she used to work there. She goes through that. She met a man there that was, that she fell in love with. And his name was Emil. So our courtship was exhilarating, for Emil was a man of means. In other words, he was well off. So he took me places I'd never been, bought me clothes I'd never imagined, paid for meals I'd never experienced in my poor sheltered life. Emil had earned his wealth quickly from investments in lumber and steel. He was a spender, a risk taker. He went over the boards when he got an idea. I suppose that is why he was drawn to a poor girl like me. He abhorred those who were born into wealth and rather enjoyed doing things the sophisticated people would never do. So she's like, this is a really interesting rich guy. He's wealthy on his own, and he doesn't really care about being part of the wealthy people. And one of the things he does is he goes to these blue collar seaside resorts and he loves them. And by the way, we don't really have those down here. I mean, the things we have near the beach, we think about seaside resorts. You think about these really fancy condos you guys go to for spring break and all. That's not what it's like in the Northeast. I remember living up there for a little bit of time and going to Portland, Maine, and seeing their boardwalk and stuff. And it's really not where the rich people hang out. It's kind of the blue collar, the lower and upper, not, I'm sorry, not upper, the lower class, the lower middle class, that kind of group, the middle class, they all would hang out there. And you know what? The places are the coolest. They really are. They're just really special areas. And so this guy likes them. So he decides he's going to do something great for this woman, and he's going to build her an amusement park. And you should see where this is going. Um, he builds Ruby Pier. This woman's name is Ruby. She is who it's named after. She's the person that this amusement park was built for. All right. And it's the place where Eddie's father worked. It's where Eddie worked. So they are connected, just not as directly as we would think. And again, that's one of the messages in this book is our connections to people go farther than people we know. And it's hard for us to think of that. We think about our connections as people that we know, that we interact with, that we're friends with, that we're familiar with. We don't think about the ways that things we've done. And granted, right now at the ages of 15 and 16, a lot of you don't have a lot of interactions outside those immediate people. But I can think about it, me as a 42-year-old as a teacher. I think about maybe some of the kids I've taught who listen to some of the things I say and it kind of impacted them in some way, go and get married, and that's now part of who they are, and that's part of how they're going to bring their kids up. So in a way, I've had impact on those kids, hopefully for the positive. So that's kind of what this book is setting up, is that we're so much more than what we think we are. All right. Okay, so we go back into another Today is Eddie's Birthday passage. This one, he's 33. This is the day he finds out that something's wrong with his dad. All right, and we get this typical, like, his wife. His wife seems like such an amazing person, to be honest with you. She's kind of joking a lot around with him, even though he is obviously being a complete butthead. And then you go through reading it, and I do encourage you to read it. I'm not trying to trivialize it by skipping through it. I'm just trying to hit the high points, like I've said before. It closes out with Eddie. He says, "Come down. There's a phone call. I think something happened to your father." So now we're going to get the kind of what happened to Eddie's dad. But we got to go back before. We're going to get that tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. But we go back to their story, and because this is what he does, he drops that exposition in the middle of another story. It keeps us guessing. It keeps you paying attention. It's a really good technique. So then Ruby gives us a little bit more detail about something tragic that happened, because she starts asking questions about stuff that was there, and he's talking about how all of that's gone, and particularly this old entrance that said Ruby Pier that she was really proud of. There had been a big fire, and some people were killed. It looks like, if I remember right, her husband wasn't. Let's see. I'm trying to find the part. Okay, we're on 71 here. This is the last part you should be reading. It says she shook her head. The rest happened quickly. The fire spread to the midway and the food stalls and on the end to the animal cages. The roustabouts ran off. By the time someone came to our home to wake us, Ruby Pier was in flames. From our window, we saw the horrible orange blaze. We heard the horses' hooves and the steamer engines of the fire companies. People were in the street. I begged Emil not to go, but that was fruitless. Of course he would go. He would go to that raging fire, and he would try to salvage his years of work, and he would lose himself in anger and fear. And when the entrance caught fire, the entrance with my name and my picture, he lost all sense of where he was, too. He was trying to throw buckets of water when a column collapsed upon him. says, in the course of that one night, our lives were changed forever. Risk taker that he was, Emil had only acquired only minimal insurance on the pier. He lost his fortune. His splendid gift to me was gone. In desperation, he sold the charred grounds to a businessman from Pennsylvania for far less than it was worth. That businessman kept the name Ruby Pier, and in time he reopened the park, but it was not ours anymore. Emil's spirit was as broken as his body. It took 3 years before he could walk on his own. We moved away to a place outside the city, a small flat, where our lives were spent modestly, me tending to my wounded husband and silently nurturing a single wish. What wish, Eddie said, that he had never built that place. All right? So we get this sense of regret that she has because this place that was meant to be such a amazing testament to how much her husband loved her ended up destroying them. Now, that's supposed to be part of what we're going to get in tomorrow's reading about Eddie and his father, okay? Because there's a reason that all of these stories kind of interconnect. All right, so like I said, this third person's an interesting one. She's definitely not my favorite as far as like the messages contained, but it's kind of neat to get some of this backstory, and it's got to set us up for the fourth person, because there is some sort of dark stuff coming with Eddie's dad as we learn a little more about him. But that's important, okay, for Eddie to move past this. This is probably the biggest issue in his life is his issues with his father, and so we've got to get him through those. So, all right, well, we're going to stop here, and then tomorrow we got a very short reading. It's only about 6 pages, so we're going to finish up, get through 77, and then I'm going to stop. I'm not going to make the next set of videos. If you noticed in your OneNote, you do have the next set of questions. You have this week and next week. I can't tell you not to go ahead and do the questions for next week, but I just encourage you that if you do, good for you, first of all, for being proactive and knocking stuff out. I appreciate that. But come back and look at the videos too. I realize a lot of this is just telling you if you read, you really don't need these. But I just kind of like to point out some stuff, and I'd like you to be able to catch it too, all right? So, and by the way, most of you who are the ones who would work ahead are probably the 3 or 4 still watching this video. So thanks to you. I appreciate you. All right, guys, going to stop this, going to film my last video. I'm going to put them all on one OneNote page and ship them out to you. So you should have these by Sunday afternoon. So thank you again for your time. Thank you for your patience as I kind of ramble. Y'all are amazing. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video.